Hey gang, Aaron Fisher here with another episode of the Card Magic Minute. This is my chance to share with you some of the most exciting lessons that my students are learning every week when they study with me during the course of my online training program. One of the reasons that I like giving magic lessons is because it gives me a chance to share some of the most important things that I've learned with students. And what I find is I can remember when I was just learning magic, and it would seem like the barriers between where I was and the professional magicians or the magicians that I admired were so big, so astounding that I would never, ever, ever be able to traverse the gap. For example, stage fright was so terrible for me. I would shake so terribly, and I was so scared of it that I actually had this deep, dark, secret fear that I wouldn't share with anybody, that I simply wasn't up to doing magic, that was something for the guys that I admired, that didn't shake, that weren't terrified, that could walk out in front of an audience and do a great job without being afraid, and that I simply wasn't one of those guys, and that as the years went on and I would continue to feel that way, I would begin to really doubt whether or not I had the opportunity or the chance or the talent to do magic. And of course, now looking back on the other side of it, I see that that was purely a hallucination on my part based on not having had the experience, not having been through the process, and not knowing that, of course, all of those professionals that you admire have had those same experiences, have been just as scared, have messed up in front of audiences just as bad as you have. And so one of the reasons that I like to teach is because I get to share with students the reality that we are truly all the same in this process. And it's just our perspectives that change. And so I got a chance to do that with a student on a different topic a couple weeks ago, because he's working in a series of restaurants and he's trying out a lot of new ideas. And it reminded me of what it was like for me when I was building my first close-up show and parlor show and stage show. And during this time I was working at the Magic Castle in Los Angeles, and so I was doing a lot of repetitions. I was down in the basement before big performance weeks working on new material, and in a piece of new material there would be sometimes 20, 30 new ideas that I was trying to erect in front of the audience all at once. Some of those ideas would be presentational, some would be just straight up jokes. Other ideas would involve the revelations of various things, and still other ideas would involve sleights or the management of secret moments on stage and the actual method as it moves through the trick, actually literally being able to deceive people with various ideas or bits of misdirection or pieces of attention management and focus that I was working on. And so here's what I discovered, is that no matter what the idea I ever tried was, I could basically count on my first time ever doing it being a complete airball, a misfire. There was something about taking that 20, 30, 40 reps of repetition at the house of actual rehearsal and then bringing it in front of that first live audience, whether it was 2 people or 3 people or 20 people, I would find that the very first time I would try an idea in front of an audience, it wouldn't work. I would either just do it poorly or not commit to it. That'll happen a lot. You'll sort of do it right, but you'll be so busy freaked out because people are watching you do something sneaky that you literally won't really be able to focus on it and commit to the idea. And this definitely applies to the max to jokes. I would find that before I would be able to even get the right reading on a joke to find out whether it would work for an audience, I would sometimes have to try it 2, maybe 3 times before I would even begin to see the needle move on whether or not that joke was ever going to get a reaction. So what I shared with my student and what I'm sharing to you with you today is this important advice. Whenever you have an idea, and it doesn't matter whether it's the way you turn over a card, the way you reveal a selection at the end of a routine, or the way you cover something, you should make sure that you try that idea at least 3 to 5 times non-judgmentally, which means no matter how badly it goes, no matter how much the audience doesn't respond or they don't like it, or whether they just, if it's a piece of misdirection or something secret, if they pretty much catch you doing it outright, you should almost always make sure that you try that same idea without changing it, without altering that idea or criticizing it, at least another 2 to 4 times after that first time, before you begin to even really pay attention to the stimulus that you're having. Because so much of live performance is about letting the adrenaline burn off, getting comfortable with the idea so that you can actually commit to it in peace and harmony, which is so hard for us to do when the lights are on our face, either metaphorically or literally, and the audience is watching everything we do. After you give it that 3 to 4 shots or 5 shots, you can begin to think, okay, maybe I'll try this a little different, or maybe I'll turn this part up a little bit, or maybe I'll use a different word here. And then those sorts of decisions can really grow out of experience and knowledge, as opposed to, I told that joke, they don't like it, let me try another one. Well, the simple truth is, you don't really know if they didn't like that joke until you get so comfortable with telling it that you begin to forget how afraid you are and really give it your best shot. And that takes time and patience for all of us. So that's today's episode of the Card Magic Minute. And it occurred to me recently that before the internet and before the Card Magic Minute, people used to learn magic in a different kind of way. I remember the way I learned is I walked into a magic store, and this is the way it used to work during what I would call the age of the masters. A kid walks into a magic store, and he's interested in magic, and he's seeking knowledge. And the magic store owner, who in many cases is a very knowledgeable guy and a very nice guy, but very rarely are they card men, sells the student some tricks, whether they be trick decks or some special coins or some special what we call marketed effects. And those effects these days are the equivalent to the things that new students Googling magic will find on the internet websites that specialize in selling magic to beginners. And what begins to happen to the young card man is he begins to buy less and less, or he begins to have discovered that he's purchased everything that's for sale, and he's still loitering, as Peter O'Toole used to say, loitering with intent in the magic store, hanging out like a bit of a ghost. The magic store owner at this point begins to recognize that the young man is probably beginning to shift his focus and will maybe begin to put that student in touch with some of the magic books, some of the classics, so that he can begin to really deepen his knowledge and get the knowledge that he seeks, but also because the magic store owner doesn't really have much else to sell him in the way of new stuff. Of course, that's different today because the magic store owners literally never run out of new stuff because it's released by the pound per minute. But what would happen to that young student traditionally is, after haunting the magic store for some period of time, whether it's weeks or months, eventually a card man would happen into the store, a real one, and the student could strike up a real relationship, and with a little luck and a little effort, could begin to get a real education in card magic from someone who could take him by the hand and show him step by step what it really is to be a card magician, and show him that it's not really necessarily about learning the hardest moves, but it's learning about handling the fundamentals really, really well in front of a real audience and really learning how to put it together. And that's very much the spirit that created the online training program that we're now talking about today. So if this makes sense to you and you'd like a safe place where you can achieve your goals and dreams and learn to be a real card man, you should go to aaronfishermagic.com/coaching.htm and fill out a student profile. It'll tell me about you and your magic, and I'll get back to you with some ideas on how we can proceed and help you achieve the goals that you're pursuing here in magic. So, my name's Aaron Fisher. You can email me, aaron@aaronfishermagic.com. You can find me on Twitter @AaronFisherCard. You can email me to be Facebook friends at facebook.com/AaronFisher and just send me an email on Facebook and I will friend you immediately. And I really do hope to hear from you soon, and I hope you're having an incredible summer. Thanks for listening.